Next up, we got the insane mother who starved her daughter to death. Now, this is my first time reacting to this channel. I don't even know what I'm really going to get into when reacting this. I don't know if it's like a like them case videos where we watch them like get interrogated, or if it's just somebody narrating over the story. I don't know. So we're about to see. But hey, let's see what it is. Time by.
Angela Mcnulty is a peculiar and frankly bizarre case that still haunts the minds of those who witnessed it unfold. Mother of four and wife to Richard Mcnulty, Angela singled out her oldest daughter, Jeanette Maples, and did unthinkable, horrid things to her in the name of discipline. Welcome back to Twisted Minds. My name is James, and today we will be looking at the case of Angela Mcnulty. Angela starved, mutilated, and tortured her daughter to death in the cruelest way imaginable. And all she had to say when she was caught was, "I'm sorry."
For what though? That's the real question. Why did you do this?
Take a look at how this absolutely
Why did she do this?
case went down.
For like what? I'm confused.
Angela Mcnulty was born in California, where she lived with her parents and two brothers. When she was just 5 years old, tragedy struck, and her mother was murdered. Unfortunately, the case remains unsolved for the most part. Soon after graduating high school, Angela left home and traveled with a carnival worker who was a lot older than her. Instead of helping her put together her young adulthood, this man introduced young Angela to various drug substances. Not so long after her stint with the carnival worker, Angela got married to another man, later giving birth to two sons and a daughter named Maples in 1994. Sadly, it wasn't long after the birth of her third child that the California Child Protective Services took her three children from her due to neglect and abuse. In the years that followed, Angela had a daughter and was successful in retrieving her kids who were formerly taken away by state officials. After this victory, Angela went on to marry a long-haul truck driver named Richard Mcnulty in 2002, and the entire family left California for Oregon sometime in 2006. It was never discovered what led Angela to abusing her daughter to such extremes, seeing as how her other three children were relatively unharmed, but it happened anyway. Maples' maltreatment at the hands of her mother had been reportedly going on for years, as she was often spotted going to her school nurse to treat bruises and cuts to her body. Teachers and friends became increasingly concerned and asked Maples how she got her injuries, and eventually, she opened up to them, telling them that she was abused at home by her mother. The school authorities reported the incident to the Department of Human Services, who paid a visit to the Maples home. When Angela was questioned about her daughter's injuries and accusations, she painted a picture around the situation, making Maples out to be a compulsive liar who would do anything for attention. Unfortunately, they believed Angela's story and left Maples at her home with her mother, not knowing things were about to get much worse for her. Angela took Maples out of school with the reason that she would fare better being homeschooled, effectively cutting off all communications to the public. With no school or friends to notice her condition, and no means of asking for help, Maples was left at the mercy of her mother. The only other person who seemed to take notice of Angela's treatment of her daughter was Lynn Mcnulty, her mother-in-law. Lynn was concerned about Angela's treatment of Maples, but was also denied access to see her grandchildren. And it was at this point that she began to continuously call child welfare. As it turned out, the concerned grandmother had in fact reported to child welfare just a few days before Maples would eventually die. At home, Angela subjected her daughter to such inhumane treatment that, at 15 years old, Maples was so malnourished and small that she looked like she was a much younger girl. She was forced to sleep on the floor with nothing but a cardboard spread out. She was constantly beaten with leather belts to the point where her blood spattered on the floor, the walls, and the ceilings. In addition to
Bro, what did he just say? He said he beat her so hard that the blood was splattered on the walls and the floor? Bro, what? The worst I got, like, beaten, I ain't gonna lie, was 6th grade. That was my worst time I ever got whoopings. Let me give you a little backstory, alright? Now, I was a bad little kid, you know, I wasn't really bad. It was just bad with, like, school. Like, I didn't take school too serious in middle school. So when I got there, you know what I'm saying, I was not doing my homework, you know what I'm saying, doing everything else. You feel me? So my dad, he had a little, let's just say, not punishment, but like, you know, something. I don't know the word, but like, consequences for doing the actions I did. So, you know, My consequences were doing push-ups. Seems easy enough, doing push-ups. But how many push-ups is the real question? 100 push-ups. Now you say, all right, 100 push-ups, you just getting stronger. But no, not also just 100 push-ups. Even though 100 push-ups straight without stopping is just hard itself. But think about someone whooping you at the same time. So you're doing 100 push-ups. Your legs tired, your arms definitely tired, and someone is beating you with a belt the same time. You know what I'm saying? Now, I don't want to say that's like he need to get CPS. You feel me? But it was definitely up there. You know what I'm saying? Like that was kind of. It definitely to learn my lesson though.
To the
Not
point
gonna lie.
where her blood spattered on the
Not
floor,
gonna lie.
the walls, and the ceilings. In addition to these horrifying discoveries, torture devices of different kinds were found in the house, with chunks of Maple's flesh still on them. According to investigators, Angela would take Maples into what prosecutors described as the torture room, where she would beat and torture her daughter to unfathomable extremes. While she did this, Angela would turn on the vacuum cleaner in a bid to muffle the sounds of Maple's screams so other children and neighbors wouldn't hear it. At times, she would tie Maples up for days at a time, and other times she would collect dog feces and proceed to rub it all over Maples' face and mouth. When Maples was examined, officers found that Angela starved her daughter and left her dehydrated to the point where Maples had to resort to drinking water from the toilet. The teenager's lips were torn and her mouth pulverized from being continuously hit without proper healing. Her face was disfigured from repeatedly being hit with metal objects.
Oh my god, bro. What is going on? Bro.
On December 9th, 2009, firefighters responded to a 911 call from Angela Mcnulty, who reported that her daughter had suddenly stopped breathing. Firefighters were first on the scene, and they reported seeing Maples lying flat on her back without a shirt in a dark room. While trying to check her vitals and possibly resuscitate her, the first responders found her head in dirty bandages and noticed a wound on her hip. The hip injury reportedly caused many eyebrows to raise because it appeared to have been ripped off as they could see the bone. The officials described her appearance as that of a concentration camp victim, and due to her small stature, they didn't believe when her mother told them Maples was 15 years old. She had wet, smelly hair, cuts above her eyes, and was so skinny you could see the bones on her body. Moments later, paramedics arrived and found that Maples had no pulse. They tried CPR extensively and proceeded to put a tube down her throat, trying to pump air into her lungs. Reports from firefighters on the scene say that Angela Mcnulty was a tad bit agitated at first, after which she suddenly went quiet and even laughed a few times. Angela told the paramedics that her daughter simply fell and was fine before falling.
I lost somebody like her, bro. She need the death chair. She need that, bro. She need a death penalty, honestly, bro. Honestly, come on, bro.
At that point, Angela's husband, Richard Mcnulty, was also on the scene, but didn't say a word. Maples was taken to the hospital in an ambulance, and there, Dr. Elizabeth Hilton examined her body and found no sign of life. She then went on to pronounce the young woman dead at 8:42 p.m. After examining Maples' body, the doctor discovered the endless, visible injuries all over her body, as well as broken front teeth that appeared to have been smashed in. Alarmed, Dr. Hilton met with the Mcnulty family, questioning them on Maples' medical history. Angela answered that her daughter had no previous medical problems, stating she was a healthy young girl. Angela went on to add that Maples had been eating, but simply got very skinny, only recently for unknown reasons. Everyone could see right past the lackluster excuses given for her daughter's eventual death, and a search of the Mcnulty residence gave all the evidence police needed to arrest Angela and Richard Mcnulty. The pair were both interrogated, with Angela denying having any hand in her daughter's injuries and subsequent death. She was questioned by Lane County Sheriff's Detective Aaron Hoberg on how her daughter had gotten her injuries, to which she initially replied, "I don't know." The detective pushed on, asking her about the belts and torture devices they found at the family house. At this point, finally succumbing to the pressure, Angela simply replied by saying her husband was in charge of discipline, and he was the one who beat Maples. Detectives have interviewed her husband and...
See how the women do that? You know what I'm saying? She did all that to her daughter. and she blamed it on the man. That's just messed up.
And the other kids,
That's
who
just
all
messed
revealed
up.
it was Angela that did the beating and not her husband Richard. He had also revealed that his wife had asked him to take the blame for beating Maples, hoping he would receive a lighter sentence on account of his underlying heart condition. Angela later admitted to repeatedly beating her daughter, and when asked why she got so angry at Maples, she said, "I don't know, I just did. I guess the things she did just got to me." She later broke down in what the detectives called a well-put-on show of tears, claiming she was sorry for hurting her daughter.
She wasn't sorry. She was not sorry. She was not sorry. Wow.
Angela and Richard Mcnulty were charged with the aggravated murder of Jeanette Maples and were arraigned to be tried in court. Prosecutors on the case were seeking a 30 to life sentence for Richard Mcnulty, but for Angela, they sought the death penalty.
Yes.
Her case was brought to the court and garnered a lot of media attention as the evil mother who starved and tortured her daughter to death. On the very first day of the trial, Angela Mcnulty entered the courtroom crying profoundly and pleaded guilty to the murder of her daughter, effectively moving the case to a penalty phase trial in front of a jury to determine her sentence on the murder charge. The state prosecution attorneys submitted a mountain of evidence against Angela Mcnulty in an attempt to land a death sentence. The bruises, the extreme weight loss from starvation, the injury to the head, and the overall state of Maples were all the prosecution needed to make its case. On the other hand, Angela's defense brought a host of witnesses to try to prove her character, hoping to avoid the death penalty and land a lighter sentence. They called George and Mike Fusi, who were Angela's brothers, to testify to her upbringing and childhood. They spoke on how, after their mother was murdered when Angela was 5 years old, their father was the prime suspect, but with no evidence, he was never convicted. Their father would resort to the same tactic of denying them food as punishment, and that hitting them with strange objects was quite regular growing up. The defense for Angela Mcnulty...
That's another thing too, bro. I'm not saying this is what happened with her, but females will say, like, if they go and kill their boyfriend or do some stupid crazy shit, they just blame it on their childhood. Oh yeah, I was I want to say the R word. Y'all know the R word. I mean, girls get R. Y'all know the R word. I was R word when I was little, and they just blame it on their parents. They just blame it on their parents. You know what I'm saying? This shit ain't really even happen. They just be talking, bro. And then girls automatically especially in the courtroom, girls automatically get, put on like a lower like stool. I don't know how to explain it, but like, what I'm trying to say, like, they always get just pushed over, basically. Like, they never get really dealt with. Anything they do, it's never really, they'll never charge the woman with everything unless she just had so much evidence and stuff like that. Unless you have so much evidence and stuff like that, bro, they don't never even charge her like that. You know what I'm saying? Especially if it's like a man versus women, bro, the girl's gonna win 90% of the time. You know what I'm saying? So if they come with like a little sob story about why she did all this stuff, it might, you know what I'm saying? It might work. You know what I'm saying?
Friends and neighbors,
but that's what they be doing all the time.
She poses no threat to others, as she has never done anything out of the ordinary to people other than her children. They were trying to get the judge to throw out the death penalty with a motion. The motion was denied, and the death sentence remained on the table. A testimony from her husband, Richard, revealed not just Angela's cruelty to her daughter, but his neglect and ignorance, which aided in her death. Richard Mcnulty testified that although his wife would turn up the TV or vacuum cleaner when she abused her daughter, he could still hear the screams. He said the screams grew less.
So why you didn't stop it? Why you let your wife beat your little daughter? Did you even care about your daughter?
And less intense as Maples lost weight and eventually became borderline silent because she didn't have the strength to scream anymore. After days of back and forth between the prosecution and the defense, the jury was left to determine Angela Mcnulty's sentence from 4 major questions. The first being if Angela's actions that led to the death of her daughter were done deliberately and with premeditated intent. The second was if the actions of Angela toward her daughter were a cause or proof of provocation from Maples or any other external influence. The third is if there was a chance Angela would pose a danger to her family and others if allowed to live out her days in a supermax prison. The fourth and last was simply if she deserves the death penalty. Before the final statements by opposing counsels, Angela asked to speak on the stand. Not to testify or be cross-examined, but simply to make a speech to the jury.
What you gotta
8
say?
men and 4 women deciding her fate. She apologized extensively to the jury, the judge, and the detective on the case, acknowledging what she did was wrong. She said, "I am very sorry for hurting my daughter in a very bad way. I want you to know I did wrong, and I am at peace with your decision." In their closing statement, the prosecution recounted detail by detail and witness after witness, painting a picture of just how unthinkable it was for a mother to starve, mutilate, torture, and abuse her daughter to the point of death. We're not talking about an angry drunk. We are talking about a cold-headed killer. After much deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict and found her guilty on all 4 counts recounted earlier, sentencing her to death.
Yes.
This made Angela Mcnulty the first and only woman in the state of Oregon to receive the death penalty since it was reintroduced by voters in 1984.
Yes.
After being remanded to a maximum security prison, Angela was kept in separate holding blocks for death row inmates and also for her safety, as she was constantly under threat of death. Prisoners don't take lightly to child murderers and abusers and would waste no time in killing an inmate guilty of such crimes.
They're not
During
playing
her
there.
time
They don't play.
Angela ate alone and was only allowed 40 minutes of exercise and shower time a day. To take things further, she could only interact with other inmates through a fence. In July of 2019, District Judge Burdette Pratt overturned Angela Mcnulty's death sentence and conviction, citing that her counsel was ineffective in advising her to plead guilty to the murder charge without a concession from the date to reduce her sentence in exchange. He also stated that her lawyers were ineffective in proving that Mcnulty did not pose a future danger to society, which would have reduced her sentence from a death penalty to life imprisonment. He added that they were incompetent and failed to prove that obvious trauma from her childhood played a significant role in her present psychological behavior toward her own child. The state's prosecution...
This is what happened. They went and got the greatest lawyer in the world. That's what they went and did, bro. They went and got the best lawyer in the world, and it worked out. They spent that money, and it worked out. It worked out. So...
prosecutor's office appealed the ruling, stating it did its part in ensuring a fair trial of Mcnulty and was close to winning. But just as the appeals process was ongoing, Oregon State Governor Kate Brown signed SB 2013 into law, which greatly reduced the state's ability to pass death sentences. In July of 2020, Angela Mcnulty's case was finalized. She was taken off death row.
Wait,
her
what?
sentence was reduced to life imprisonment without the possibility
No!
of parole instead. With Angela now off death row, the total number of women on death row in the United States is currently at 52, with the last to be executed being Kelly Gissendaner, who was executed using lethal injection back in 2015. Richard Mcnulty was also convicted of his murder charge and received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 25 years. He, however, did not appeal his sentence, accepting it with grace. Thanks for tuning in to Twisted.
Hey, man, y'all like subscribe. Come show me Yak 2 next, man. If I'm Instagram, so I'm most active at. We on the grind to 10K. And I'm out.